Hi, I'm Perry McLeod. I work at the VA in Little Rock, Arkansas. I want to talk to you a little bit about the problem that we have when we're moving our patients down the hallways. Patients that are moving through the hallway with wheelchairs, it can be a little cumbersome trying to hold the IV pole as you're rounding the corners and you're pushing, and there's just nothing in place to keep that IV pole close to the patient. The same thing happens when you're moving a bed. This is an ICU bed, and so it's a quite heavy bed. And again, there's nothing to keep the IV pole close to the bed. And so you actually have to have one hand on the bed and then one hand on the IV pole to try to attempt to keep the IV line from being pulled out. So the solution that we have is this IV pole hitch. It is a fixed hardware that attaches to the bed and also to the IV pole, and you can see it here. It's going to maintain that line, that IV line, from being pulled out. It's easy to design, it's intuitive, there's no tools that you have to use, and it works, the concept works. With this IV pole hitch, what it does is it keeps the lines from being stretched or pulled out as you're moving the patients down the hallways. This can be threatening to patients that are critically ill because they require a constant flow of IV fluids to maintain blood pressure, such as vasopressors. A study of 168 IV lines revealed that infiltration occurred nearly 35%, and that can cause necrosis and ulceration. The IV pole hitch reduces the cost to replace these IV lines. It maintains patient safety, and it reduces the staffing to transport patients down the hallways. There's times when we had ICU, we'd have 2 or 3 IV poles, so that required 2 or 3 people extra to move the bed down the hallway. The IV pole hitch solves that problem because you can daisy chain the IV poles together. So our facility in itself transfers 4,000 patients a year. Many of these are going from inner ward to inner ward, and that's not counting the ones that are being escorted out to an off-site location. The current status of the IV pole hitch is we've redesigned the attachment points on it with the engineer up in Minneapolis. Design is going to work. It's going to be very easy for people to use, and it's going to fit. It's going to be more versatile to fit any of the beds that we have in this VA and then other VAs also. So much better improvement on the design. I want to thank you for your assistance to help me with this and your support. I ask you to continue to support me. We're so close to having a final project, and hopefully by July 13th we'll have 2 more IV pole hitches that we'll do for testing. And if they work as what it certainly looks like it will, we're going to be ready to roll. So again, thank you for your support.